There we go. There we go. Welcome back. It's Business Learning Lab, where Meredith and I have made all of the business mistakes so you don't have to. And this is where we share the lessons learned in our many years of entrepreneurship and business and being business owners. So I'm Jennifer, co-founder of Sparent, entrepreneur since I was 19. Meredith, please introduce yourself.
I am Meredith Eaton, co-founder of Sparent, founder of another company, Eaton Press, and entrepreneur, since, I don't know, birth, maybe. Hard to say what I
began. Anyway, today we want to talk about committing to work-life integration instead of struggling to reach a work-life balance. And this is a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. One, because we think language is important. And two, we also think unrealistic expectations, particularly of women, is something that we should stop accepting as part of our reality. It's over. So first, Meredith, I want to talk about the work-life balance because that is a word that is thrown around a lot. I've been hearing it a lot, particularly, in the pandemic as women have left careers because they've had caretaking responsibilities. The Great Resignation, we're hearing that language about work-life balance a lot as maybe some of the reasoning why people are exiting the workforce. But I have a lot of problems with the work-life balance paradigm, is what I realized. And my biggest issue with it, and bring your own issues to the table, Meredith, but my biggest issue with it is that ironically, it's not balanced at all because the responsibility of work-life balance is always on the individual and is never passed along to the employer, right? It's up to us, and again, particularly women, to find the balance between work and home and family and fun and self-care and mental health and physical health and exercise and all of the all of the things that we are supposed to be juggling and juggling well, and also sleep. Let's not forget sleep. Right? We got to get in the 8 hours. So
just jumping in on that too. The other piece of it is, generally speaking, the concept of work-life balance only applies to women. It's you don't generally. It's starting to change a little bit because someone's going to pop up and say like, oh, but generally speaking, it is only a concept that applies to women, and it's really only a concept that entered into the lexicon and entered into awareness when women started entering the workforce in en masse and like by choice and not by economic circumstance. And so there's a ton of women in the workplace all of a sudden, but also still being, doing all the childcare, doing all the home stuff, blah, blah, blah. And so all of a sudden we got this concept of work-life balance, but very few people ask male CEOs and male presidents and stuff, of companies, how are you managing work-life balance? What do you do to balance that? Nobody asked that.
You're absolutely right, Meredith. You're absolutely right. And then as women, how many times have we felt as if we are failing, as we are not, accomplishing something that we should be able to accomplish, and so we feel like we're doing something wrong when the system has been rigged against us. You can't accomplish work-life balance and work 40 plus hours a week and commute and have a family and take care of your mental health and sleep and exercise and feeding your family. It's impossible. It is impossible. So what we want to talk about is something that we want to replace work-life balance with. And we think as employers ourselves, we have a responsibility to commit to this, and it's work-life integration. And I love the philosophy of work-life integration because it's a collaborative responsibility between employers and individuals to integrate life and work in a way that they don't have to compete with each other, that they can, joyfully coexist because the work is not oppressive, the work is joyful, the employers are respectful of your time, your family's needs. They understand that work is not your life, that your life is your life, and that takes priority. So That's what we want to talk about today, is what it means to commit to work-life integration as employers, but also as people, because it is a drastic shift in your mindset, and it might not feel natural, and it might feel weird. I think it
Yeah,
will feel weird because we're so used to the other paradigm.
exactly. And I think at the core, the core principle in making this shift and fully embracing work-life integration is a mindset shift to work focused on outcomes and not input. So it's not about the number of hours you're at your desk. It's not about whether your butt is in a seat in an office building or at home or on a beach in Thailand or wherever it is that you want to work. We have to shift to focus on the outcomes. What do I need, as an employer? What do we need our employees to accomplish? When do we need them to accomplish it by? The rest of it, not really my business. Don't care. If you give me what I need when I need it at the level that I need it, I don't care. I don't care how you're doing it, where you're doing it, how many hours it took you to do it, and then goes with salary, all of that, all has to get wrapped up, combined. We have to shift our brains as a capitalist society to really, really understand and embrace this outcome-based mentality, because it solves so many problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is going to take a little bit of time, but we absolutely, where we can, and is we need to decouple the number of hours worked to our salary. We need to move away from the 40-hour work week. And if this sounds radical to you, I want to say that this is actually backed up by plenty of studies that have proven that working less hours leads to a higher degree of productivity, as well, and separately, being happy in your work makes you more productive. So a 30-hour work week, you can pay your employees the same for a 30-hour, quote unquote 30-hour work week, and they'll actually be more productive for you. In other words, you're both winning. You're both winning. And I think that's what I'd like to see us move towards, a 3 or 4 day work week. With that, maybe that 30-hour, if you have to tie it to hours, like thinking around 30 hours as more of an ideal lifestyle, and that works with work-life integration. But it could be 25.
Yeah.
But keeping the pay the same, understanding that people are going to be more productive, probably more loyal, more able to retain their employment because it works so well with their life and their family, demands. It's a new way of thinking about it, but I love it.
I do too. And I think the other piece of it is uncoupling the idea of pay being tied to hours. And instead, salaries are based on experience. They're based on the ability to meet the objectives that have been set. They are based on just that being at the level and being willing to be a part of the team and the process that you're creating, and not about how many hours you worked per week. And that's all a part of it. Again, I mean, this is like, we're talking about like a pretty big dismantling.
It is a rather big dismantling.
It is. But once you start doing it, and I think, it's not as scary to us because first, we're not afraid of change. We're not afraid of radical ideas and doing things a different way. But also with Sparent in particular, and with Eaton Press and my other company, we work a lot with contractors versus employees. And the main thing about working with contractors is you really have to change all of your ideas about how you interact, how you lead them, how you set agendas and expectations, because you cannot tell them what to do. You can't tell them what hours to work. You can't tell them that they have to be in a certain place. You can't, there's a lot of stuff you really can't do. So all you can do is focus on outcomes. So when I have an entire team of subcontractors that work directly for me at Eaton Press, and we have a lot of projects going on, and it has been a real, like a training ground for me to really change the way that I think, because I have to say, okay, here's when this project's due. Here are the milestones that have to get met. And there's a part of me that wants to be like, I need this done tomorrow, just because it'll make me feel better to have it done tomorrow, but it doesn't actually need to be done tomorrow. And as a result, they're almost always done early. They almost beat every deadline. They're super committed to it. And then when they have to have a vacation, when they have to, not have to, but when they're going on vacation, when they have something in their life that gets in the way, they just tell me. We adjust the schedules, we make it work, we figure it out. And once you start doing it, it's really not that scary. It's really not that hard. And in fact, I find it easier as a manager, as the leader, that I don't have to keep track of every freaking thing that everybody's doing.
Absolutely. And that reminds me, I think another part of this, work-life integration is going to require employers and managers to disengage from the parental role they play in their employees' lives.
Yes.
And that plays out into a lack of trust for their employees, a lack of respect, a lack of freedom in the work. Oppressive oversight. How many times have we seen reports of companies, bragging that they have a flexible work environment, people can work from home, yet they're spying on their employees with key tracking software and screenshot software. So they're essentially, spying on them, making sure their butts are in those seats and that they're doing, the work that they are paying them to do, basically owning their time in a way that I think goes beyond what it should. So that is another part, I think, of the work-life integration culture is you cannot micromanage, you cannot play a parental role. These are adults. If you hired them, you don't hire people that you don't trust.
Yep.
Let them prove you right, not prove you wrong.
Exactly. And that's the other piece of it is we need to start coming into things assuming the best in the people that we're working with and be prepared to be proven wrong a time or two. It happens. And to make a switch. Nothing says you have to have the same person work for you forever. If it doesn't work out, if you've given them all the tools to succeed and you've set them up for success and it's not working out, that's fine. Then you just make a change. It doesn't negate the entire principle. It doesn't mean you have to change your whole process, your whole setup, just because one person was not suited to some part of what was happening in your company. And I think that's the other thing that happens a lot. It's like one little thing, you're like, oh, I knew it couldn't work. Never mind. Nobody can be trusted. Nobody can do this. I have to sit on everybody all the time. And the other piece of it too is if it does happen over and over, you need to look inward. You need to look at what you're doing that is not setting your team up for success. That what systems do you not have that you should have? What messages, what cultures are you creating that is not working? Because there are millions of employees across the world that are very successful at this. This is not as radical as it sounds. It's just in this particular country and climate of capitalism, it feels very different, but there's a lot of people already doing
it. This is a topic that was probably a little too meaty for 10 to 15 minute business learning lab, but I wanted to leave with one thought, and that is you may be thinking that work-life integration culture can only apply to virtual work or virtual work environments. And I challenge that. I think work-life integration can absolutely must, probably more importantly, be applied to careers and situations where people can't work from home, because there are plenty of jobs where people have to go into work, whether it's retail, hospitals, everything in between. So again, there are ways to apply work-life integration to these environments. And I think the first step is reducing the hours, keeping or increasing pay. And one of the things that speaks to that is we're hearing more and more about the productivity gap. There's a lot of gaps out there. We've got wage gap, we got productivity gap. I mean, we are falling through a lot of gaps. But the productivity gap is when you have an employee who is very productive, and then what happens is, rather than being rewarded for their productivity, they're punished by being given more and more work and being expected to take up the slack of maybe less productive employees. So they're not rewarded, they're punished, and they work harder and harder and harder. They can't work hard, they can't be too productive, right? So I think again, we need to lower the hours, maintain or increase pay, see happier employees have more productivity as a byproduct of that happiness. And again, I think this is a situation where everybody can absolutely win.
Absolutely. And one last thought before we sign off, really quickly, that a way to start changing your mindset about this is to to let go of the idea that when someone arrives at work, their home life ceases to exist, that their personal life no longer exists. That if we start to say that you are a person and an employee, that's the first step, because that's where a lot of this comes from. It's just like, I don't want to know about your kids. I don't want to know about your whatever's happening. It's not my problem while you're on my time. And if we can start to let go of that, that will start to make the rest of it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel for moms who, when they're at home, they have to pretend like they don't have a career. And when they're at their job, they have to pretend like they don't have a family. And that's ridiculous and unfair and just not sustainable. We've got a lot going on right now, pertaining to women's rights, and there's a lot of upheaval going on. But I truly believe that this work-life integration is something that is so important to actually maintain some portion of women's rights in the workplace.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into this topic right here yet, but
we'll circle back on this, I think, in a few other contexts, in future learning labs and blogs and all this kind of stuff, because we really think this is essential to moving forward in a equitable, productive, profitable way for everybody. So, but for now, think about work-life integration versus work-life balance, what that means, what the difference of words means, and what you can do either as an employee or employer, or just a citizen of the world to start moving us towards work-life integration.
And I guarantee if you're an employer who's considering a work-life integration culture, you're going to start attracting top-tier talent.
Absolutely.
And retaining top-tier talent. Because not everybody's going to do this. Not everybody's going to do it right away. It will be considered very progressive and maybe radical in the very beginning. Be at the forefront.
Yep.
Be the change, as they say.
Absolutely.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you next week at Business Learning Lab. Bye.